The Shona people are one of the largest ethnic groups in Zimbabwe, with a rich history and cultural heritage that dates back to ancient times. So today I'm going to walk with you, revisiting their origins, their migration, and what customs and traditions matter to them. So I'm going to divide this journey into two sections. So firstly, we are going to focus on the pre-colonial era, that is around from 2000 BCE to the 17th century. So let's get started. Bantu migration between 2000 BC and 500 AD. The Shona people are part of the larger Bantu-speaking groups who migrated from the Great Lakes region of Central Africa. You may be wondering, just like me, what kind of life the Shona people had when they were living in the Great Lakes region. The Shona people were farmers, hunters, and gatherers living in small villages and relying on the land for food and shelter. Around 2000 BC up to 500 AD, Bantu-speaking peoples, also including the ancestors of the Shona, moved southward into southern Africa, bringing with them agriculture, ironworking, and settled communities. So the Shona people migrated southward in search for better land and more abundant resources. They traveled through present-day Zambia, Botswana, and Mozambique, eventually settling in the region that is now Zimbabwe, particularly in the area between the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers. It's important to note that it's not just the Shona people who migrated, but they were part of the larger Bantu expansion, which saw Bantu-speaking peoples spread across much of sub-Saharan Africa. Settlement in Zimbabwe about 500 to 1000 AD. By the 6th century, the ancestors of the Shona had settled in the region of modern-day Zimbabwe. They established small chiefdoms and practiced farming, cattle herding, and ironworking. The Shona culture began to develop distinct characteristics, including their language, which is a branch of the Bantu language family, and social structures. Huge empires emerged in pre-colonial Zimbabwe, which are the Great Zimbabwe state, the Mutapa state, the Rozvi state, and the Togwa state. Zimbabwe Ruins and the kingdom of Mapungubwe during the period around 1000 to 1450 AD. The Shona people built the Great Zimbabwe civilization, which flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. The city of Great Zimbabwe became the capital of their kingdom. Great Zimbabwe was an impressive city with stone walls, towers, and buildings that were unmatched in southern Africa. However, there is a controversy. Over the years, the site has attracted much controversy over its purpose and the origin of its builders, with some early European explorers saying it was a result of ancient civilization other than the Shona people. But today we know that for certain that the Shona people are widely recognized as the builders of the Great Zimbabwe, one of the most significant archaeological sites in sub-Saharan Africa. So we just want to look deeper at the Shona people and the Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe was constructed by the ancestors of the Shona people, specifically the Karanga subgroup of the Shona. The city served as a political, economic, and religious center for the kingdom. The Shona people were skilled stonemasons, and the site is renowned for its impressive dry stone walling that were built without mortar. The structure includes the Great Enclosure, which is a massive circular wall believed to have been a royal residence. It also includes the Hill Complex, which is thought to have been a religious or ceremonial center, and the Valley Complex, which housed the majority of the population. The city was a hub for trade, connecting the interior of Africa with coastal trading networks that extended to the Swahili coast and beyond. Goods such as gold, ivory, and copper were traded for items like beads and Chinese porcelain. So what is the meaning behind the name Great Zimbabwe? The name Zimbabwe is derived from the Shona phrase Dzimbadzemabwe, which means houses of stone or stone buildings. This name reflects the impressive stone architecture that characterizes the site. The word great was added by later historians and archaeologists to distinguish the ancient city from the modern day Zimbabwe, the name of the country today. So what's the significance of the name? Zimba, houses or buildings, Zimbabwe of stone, Zimbabwe, a contraction of Dzimbadzemabwe, meaning stone buildings. The name highlights the ingenuity and skill of the Shona people in constructing large, durable stone structures which were unparalleled in the region at the time. Great Zimbabwe became a major center of trade, connecting the interior of Africa with the Swahili coast and the Indian Ocean trade network. The majestic ancient stone city flourished from about 1290 to 1450 from the strength of a powerful and organized society which thrived due to favorable agricultural conditions, cattle keeping, great mineral wealth, and most significantly from regional and long-term distance trade. The long-distance trade reached out to far countries such as China, India, the Middle East, and the Near East, the East and West Africa, among other regional and interregional areas. Persian bowls, Chinese dishes, Near Eastern glass, and other such items have been excavated at Great Zimbabwe, proving the trade contacts the Shona people had with these external partners. Other trade items excavated from Great Zimbabwe included a variety of glass beads, brass wire, seashells, iron wire, axe heads, and chisels. Local goods included ivory, iron gongs, gold wire and beads, soapstone dishes, and other items. During those days, the Shona people were skilled at weaving, and some locals wore locally woven cloth. Some of the finest and most enduring artifacts at Great Zimbabwe were the 7 or soapstone bird carvings sitting on decorated monoliths. It is speculated that these were religious symbols to emphasize that Great Zimbabwe may have been a political, economic and cultural center of great religious importance. The golden age of Great Zimbabwe, when it was at its peak, was between 1300 to 1450 AD, with a population of over 10,000 people. In the 15th century, the Great Zimbabwe civilization, which had been a dominant power in the region, began to decline due to factors such as overpopulation, environmental degradation, including drought, famine, and the depletion of resources like gold and timber. As Great Zimbabwe weakened, power shifted northwards to the Zambezi Valley, where the Munhumutapa Empire emerged as a new center of authority. Internal conflicts also contributed. For example, the Portuguese arrival in the 16th century disrupted the kingdom's trade networks. By the 17th century, Great Zimbabwe had been abandoned and the kingdom had fragmented into smaller chiefdoms. So the rise of the Munhumutapa, or some call it Munhumutapa Empire, in the 15th century was driven by a combination of political, economic, and environmental factors. So the Munhumutapa Empire was around 1450 to 1693 AD. Some call it CE. CE is the modern term for AD. The decline of Great Zimbabwe opened a window for Mutota to conquer the Korekore and Tawara of the Dande and Chidema areas. Oral history has it that Mutota's victims were so impressed that they nicknamed him Munhumutapa, meaning the owner of the conquered lands, signaling the birth of Mutapa dynasty, which reigned from about 1450 to 1693 AD. The Munhumutapa Empire was known for its leadership and military strength. It was led by Nyatsimba Mutota, a skilled military leader who expanded the kingdom through conquest and diplomacy. Mutota and his successors, particularly his son Matope, used their military prowess to subdue neighboring chiefdoms and integrate them into the empire. The Munhumutapa rulers established a centralized political system with the king Munhumutapa at the top, supported by a hierarchy of regional governors and chiefs. Strategic location and trade opportunities. The Munhumutapa Empire was strategically located in the Zambezi Valley, which provided access to fertile land, water resources, and key trade routes. It was marked with agricultural prosperity since the Zambezi Valley provided fertile land for agriculture, which supported a growing population and sustained the empire's economy. The Shona people practiced crop farming, farming sorghum, millet, and cattle herding, which ensured food security and economic stability. Munhumutapa introduced an expansionist policy under Mutota and Matope. The Munhumutapa Empire expanded its territory, incorporating smaller Shona states and neighboring groups. The empire's ability to integrate diverse communities under a centralized administration allowed it to maintain control over a large area, a vast empire. The Munhumutapa stretched from the Zambezi Valley into the Mozambique lowlands and towards the fringes of the Kalahari Desert. It became a powerful state, controlling trade routes and resources such as gold and ivory. Cultural and religious influence. The Munhumutapa rulers used religious and culture to legitimize their authority. They were seen as divine or semi-divine figures, and their rule was supported by religious institutions and rituals. The empire's cultural influence extended to neighboring regions, further solidifying its dominance. So the empire had a centralized political system and controlled trade in gold, ivory, and other valuable commodities, which were exchanged with Swahili merchants on the East African coast and later with Portuguese traders. This control over trade allowed the Munhumutapa rulers to accumulate wealth and consolidate power. External trade and Portuguese involvement. The arrival of the Portuguese in the late 15th century initially bolstered the Munhumutapa's empire's wealth through trade. The Portuguese sought gold and other resources, and the Munhumutapa rulers used this relationship to strengthen their position. However, over time, Portuguese interference in the empire's politics and their attempts to control trade routes contributed to the empire's decline. The historical reports point out that the vastness of the Mutapa Empire partly explains its breakup, coupled with internal conflicts and Portuguese interference, which led to the decline of the Munhumutapa Empire by the late 17th century. The rise of reformists within the Mutapa royal family, led by Mutapa Mukombwe in 1663, eventually gave rise to a class of rulers known as the Rozvi. So between 1663 and 1704, Mukombwe and his successors successfully drove the Portuguese off with the support of the Tonga in the Zambezi Valley and the Chikanga of Manyika. This was an opportune time for Mukombwe to show off his great courage and strength, leading to resettling Mutapa's families in the lands he had freed. So summing up the Munhumutapa Empire, the Munhumutapa Empire rose to power due to a combination of strategic location, control of trade, strong leadership, military strength, and agricultural prosperity. It filled the power vacuum left by the decline of the Great Zimbabwe and became a dominant force in the region until internal conflicts and external pressures, particularly from the Portuguese, led its eventual decline in the late 17th century. The Torwa state, some people call it Togwa, was an important Shona kingdom that emerged in the southwestern region of modern-day Zimbabwe after the decline of the Great Zimbabwe in the 15th century. The Torwa state is particularly associated with the Khami Ruins, which served as its capital. So the origins and rise of the Torwa or the Togwa state are around 1450 and 1680 AD. The Togwa state was established by the Shona people following the decline of the Great Zimbabwe, which had been the dominant power in the region. The state was founded by a breakaway group from the Great Zimbabwe, possibly due to political or economic pressure, and it became a major power in the southwestern part of Zimbabwe. The Torwa rulers adopted many of the cultural and architectural traditions of Great Zimbabwe, including stone building techniques. The capital at Khami. The Togwa state's capital was located at Khami, near present-day Bulawayo. The Khami Ruins are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and are the remains of this once thriving city. Khami was built on a hill and featured elaborate stone terraces, platforms, and enclosures similar to those at Great Zimbabwe, but with distinct architectural styles. The city served as a political, economic, and religious center, with evidence of trade goods such as Chinese porcelain and Portuguese glass beads, indicating its participation in regional and international trade networks. So its political and economic structure, the Torwa or the Togwa state was a centralized kingdom ruled by a king or chief who held both political and religious authority. The economy was based on agriculture, cattle herding, and trade. The Torwa people cultivated crops like sorghum and millet and raised cattle, which were a symbol of wealth and status. The state controlled trade routes that connected the interior of southern Africa with the Swahili coast and the Indian Ocean trade network, exchanging gold, ivory, and other goods for imported items. So let's look at the Torwa's relationship with the Rozvi Empire. The Torwa state coexisted with the Rozvi Empire, another powerful Shona kingdom that emerged in the late 17th century. Initially, the Torwa state was independent and even rivaled the Rozvi for dominance in the region. However, over time, the Rozvi Empire, under the leadership of Changamire Dombo, expanded its influence and eventually absorbed or subdued the Torwa state. So the Rozvi conquest of the Torwa state marked the end of its independence, and Khami was abandoned as a political center. Decline and abandonment. The decline of the Torwa state was closely tied to the rise of the Rozvi Empire. The Rozvi's military campaigns and political consolidation weakened the Torwa's autonomy. By the late 17th century, the Torwa state had been incorporated into the Rozvi Empire, and Khami was no longer a major political or economic center. Environmental factors such as drought and resource depletion may have also contributed to the decline of the Torwa state. But it has a legacy it left. So the Torwa state is remembered for its impressive stone architecture, particularly at Khami, which reflects the continuity of Shona cultural traditions from Great Zimbabwe. The state played a significant role in the regional trade networks of Southern Africa and contributed to the cultural and political history of the Shona people. The Khami Ruins remain an important archaeological site and a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the Torwa people. So just to summarize what I've just said about the Torwa state, the Torwa state was a significant Shona kingdom that emerged after the decline of Great Zimbabwe. It thrived as a political and economic center with its capital at Khami and played a key role in regional trade networks. However, its independence was short-lived as it was eventually absorbed by the expanding Rozvi Empire in the 19th-17th century. The legacy of the Torwa state lives on in the Khami Ruins and its contributions to Shona history and culture. Rozvi Empire around 1660 up to 1866 CE. Changamire Dombo defeated the Mutapa army following a rebellion in 1684, and this gave rise to the Rozvi state. The Rozvi Empire emerged as a successor state to the Munhumutapa Empire. Under the leadership of Changamire Dombo, the Rozvi restored Shona dominance in the region and resisted Portuguese influence. The Rozvi were known for their military prowess and centralized administration. They took advantage of the dry grasslands, low trees, and excellent pasturelands of Guru Square to raise large herds of cattle, goats, and sheep. Crop farming also thrived. Pottery, blacksmithing, weaving, and basketry were also important economic activities. Also, the iron industry thrived, producing tools and weapons. Surplus products were for trading. Gold mining and game hunting were, however, low-key activities. A combined Rozvi-Mutapa force managed to drive the Portuguese out of the Zimbabwe High Veld around 1694. The empire declined in the 19th century due to internal strife and external pressures from invading Ndebele groups. The decline of the Rozvi Empire, which succeeded the Munhumutapa Empire, was a complex process influenced by both internal and external factors. It was due to internal strife and succession disputes. The Rozvi Empire faced internal instability due to disputes over succession. After the death of strong leaders like Changamire Dombo, who had established the empire, weaker rulers struggled to maintain control. This led to factionalism and infighting among the ruling elite. Decentralization. The Rozvi Empire was a loosely centralized state with regional governors and chiefs exercising significant autonomy. Over time, this decentralization weakened the central authority, making it difficult to respond effectively to external threats. Economic decline. The empire's economy, which relied heavily on trade, especially gold and ivory, began to decline as trade routes shifted and external demand for these resources fluctuated. This economic strain further weakened the empire's ability to maintain its military and administrative structures. There were also external pressures. Ndebele Invasions. One of the most significant external pressures came from the Ndebele people, led by Mzilikazi, a former lieutenant of the Zulu King Shaka. After breaking away from the Zulu kingdom, Mzilikazi and his followers migrated northwards, eventually settling in present-day Zimbabwe in the 1830s. The Ndebele were highly militarized and used their superior military tactics to conquer and subdue local populations, including the Shona. They established the Ndebele Kingdom, Matabeleland, in the southwestern part of Zimbabwe, which became a dominant power in the region. The Ndebele raids disrupted Shona communities, weakened the Rozvi Empire, and contributed to its fragmentation. Portuguese and Swahili influence. Although the Portuguese had initially engaged in trade with the Munhumutapa and Rozvi empires, their increasing interference in local politics and attempts to control trade routes created additional pressures. The Rozvi Empire struggled to maintain its independence in the face of Portuguese ambitions. Slave trade. The expansion of the transatlantic and Indian Ocean slave trades in the 18th and 19th centuries also had a destabilization effect. Slave raids and the capture of people for trade disrupted communities and weakened the social and economic fabric of the Rozvi Empire. Environmental factors, drought and famine, environmental challenges such as prolonged droughts and famines worsened the empire's decline. These conditions led to food shortages, population displacement, and increased competition for resources, further straining the empire's stability. Loss of military power. The Rozvi Empire had once been known for its strong military, but over time, its military capabilities declined due to a lack of resources, internal divisions, and the superior tactics of invading groups like the Ndebele. The empire's inability to defend its territories against external threats marked the final blow to its dominance. Fragmentation and collapse. By the mid 19th century, the Rozvi Empire had fragmented into smaller, weaker states. These states were unable to resist the Ndebele incursions or the later colonization by European powers. The collapse of the Rozvi Empire paved the way for the Ndebele kingdom to dominate the region until the arrival of British colonial forces in the 19th century. So, in brief, the decline of the Rozvi Empire in the 19th century was the result of a combination of internal strife, succession disputes, decentralization, and economic decline, including external pressures, Ndebele invasions, Portuguese interference, and the slave trade. Environmental challenges and the loss of military power further worsened its collapse. This period marked the end of the Shona dominance in the region and set the stage for the rise of the Ndebele kingdom and the eventual European colonization. So, to conclude everything we have looked at in this episode 1, which is the history of the Shona people during the pre-colonial era, starting from about 2000 BC to the 17th century. Great Zimbabwe was a medieval kingdom located in present-day Zimbabwe. The empire was founded by the Shona people who migrated from the Congo region. The kingdom rose to prominence in the 11th century, becoming a major center of trade and commerce, connecting the interior of Africa with coastal trading networks that extended to the Swahili coast and beyond. So the significance of the Great Zimbabwe is that Great Zimbabwe is a testament to the advanced engineering and architectural skills of the Shona people. The kingdom's ruins are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting tourists and scholars from around the world. Great Zimbabwe is also an important symbol of African heritage and identity. Also, the legacy of Great Zimbabwe. The kingdom's legacy can be seen in the modern day culture and traditions of the Shona people. Great Zimbabwe's history has also inspired a sense of national pride and identity in Zimbabwe, also in terms of cultural and historical significance. Great Zimbabwe is not only a symbol of the Shona people's architectural and engineering prowess, but also a source of national pride for Zimbabweans. It represents the rich history and cultural heritage of the Shona civilization and serves as a reminder of the advanced societies that existed in Africa long before European colonization. The kingdom's ruins continue to be an important site for archaeological research and study. The rise of the Shona kingdom. Under the leadership of their kings, the Shona people built a powerful kingdom that stretched from the Zambezi River in the north to the Limpopo River in the south. They developed a complex system of government with chiefs, headmen, and spirit mediums playing important roles. The Shona people's connection to the land. The Shona people have a deep connection to the land, which is reflected in their mythology and spiritual practices. They believe in a powerful spirit called Mwari, who is associated with the earth, fertility, and the ancestors. So, for more information about Shona mythology, check out the video link in the description. The Shona people were organized into various kingdoms and chiefdoms, with the most prominent being the Rozvi Empire and the Munhumutapa Empire. These kingdoms were known for their wealth derived from gold mining and agriculture and trade in ivory and other goods. So the Shona people today the Shona people are the largest ethnic group in Zimbabwe, making up around 70% of the population. They continue to play an important role in Zimbabwe's society, politics, and culture, working to preserve their traditional practices and customs while also embracing modernity and development. So that's the story of the Shona people of Zimbabwe. I hope you found it engaging and easy to understand. Please share and subscribe. Hit the notification button so that you don't miss out next time we continue exploring the history of the Shona people. So next time we are going to look at the impact of colonialism. Last but not least, I just want to acknowledge the works of many scholars for their contribution to the Shona people history, the works of archaeologists, linguists, historians, traditions, and records of the 16th century Portuguese traders who interacted with Central and Southern Africa during that time.